Okay, I think we'll get started if that's okay with everyone. It's 8 o'clock, so um, it looks like people are still coming in, but let's try to get started. Um, I would first like to say I'm Melinda Rosenthal. I'm the Director of Student Services based here at our headquarters in Indianapolis. And I'm so happy to invite you to our second virtual officer town hall. And I'm really glad to see all of you, and I hope we'll have good discussions tonight. So welcome. I do want to let you know this is being recorded, so we will send out the recording after the session.
Thomas, control your dog.
I'm so sorry. I have two barking dogs. That's the fun of working from home. They like to bark at everything outside. So it is being recorded. This will be sent out. And so welcome. I'm going to start to share my screen. And here we go. Okay. So before we get started too, I wanted to let you know that we have many volunteers and staff here tonight presenting and supporting on the town hall, and I'm very grateful for everyone. As you see, there's many people involved, and again, we are here to support you, listen to you, coach you. The volunteers and staff want to see everyone succeed. So again, thank you to all the volunteers and staff. The next thing I would like to introduce Steve Hartman, who is our CEO, and Steve is going to talk a little bit, and then Thomas Tran, our fraternity president, will talk for a few minutes too. So, Steve.
Okay, thanks, Melinda. So your dog sort of stole the thunder of my dogs. I fully expected mine to bark during my few minutes, so I was going to just warn everybody that just in case you do hear a dog or a child, it's not your imagination. So in case that interruption comes, please don't be surprised. I can see several volunteers and staff on the call know exactly what I'm talking about. So again, thanks everybody for being on the call tonight. We are all here because we all have a common interest in furthering Alpha Kappa Psi's mission, vision, and just making sure that in general the fraternity stays on solid footing as we get through this COVID-19 outbreak crisis. Firstly, I do sincerely hope that you and your families have been staying safe and in your well-being, physical, emotional, mental, is intact, doing well, given a lot of the stress and the circumstances that we're all under in these days, and it looks like it's going to be a few more days to come. With that, we are also trying to work through all the changes that the students are trying to understand about their environment on campus. What's planned for them? What can they plan? What can you plan? And then how will that work when you get to campus? So keeping all that in mind, for the students on the call, I appreciate you being here too. I think that primarily these are the times when I'm hoping that you feel like you can rely on the organization to be sort of something you can lean on. The people on the volunteer corps and the management team, as well as the professional staff. We have been working all summer to try to adjust what we offer to you as your support network, and to develop and create the resources that will help you be successful as you try to pull your chapter through this whole circumstances, all these circumstances as well. So I ask that you and being here tonight is actually certainly proof that you care about that responsibility and want to do everything you can to make sure that your chapter is alive through this, and that you're just like every other semester, that you're peers are engaged and enjoying their Alpha Kappa Psi experience. So having said that, we're going to go through several specific things this evening that are hopefully helpful as you try to navigate these waters. The first couple of things I want to share is that rather than, I'll just kind of refer to the general, like the big organization as just as AK Psi. I know a lot of people sometimes refer to it as like, quote, national. I know that's often a term that's kind of stolen from the traditional fraternities and sororities, the single-sex fraternities and sororities. Obviously, that doesn't quite apply to us. We're international, first of all, and second of all, there really isn't a national specifically. We're just one big sort of AK Psi composed of several different entities, including all the people on this call tonight. So kind of the big AK Psi, if you will, if we can all sort of bunch together figuratively this evening and talk through how we're going to make this work this semester, that's the goal. And to that goal, there are several different things that Thomas is going to cover in a minute. In the transition, I'll cover some of the pieces that he's going to go in detail on. But before he gets there, I just want to point out a couple of things that up to this point we have rolled out and are in the process of doing. I think you may have seen the virtual recruitment guide that went out in both the Brotherhood Unbounded newsletter as well as the officer newsletter that went out at the beginning of the month. In addition to that, there's a virtual pledging guide that also should help guide you in your chapter on how to conduct virtual pledging, if in fact that is something that you're looking to do and need to do. And then finally, we're going to talk a little bit about tonight, and it's expected to be ready to go, I think, tomorrow, the virtual chapter operations guide. So basically, the default is, because of the way that the schools are planning the semester, the default is we're just going to expect that we're going to have to be virtual. Knowing that's a completely different environment than what we're used to, our hope, like the collective AK Psi hope, is that we're providing you as the chapter officers with a roadmap on how to succeed and to thrive in that very challenging environment, including some of these resources. In addition to that, I'm not going to talk too much about it tonight because we'll have more to come in the next week or two. But there's also some programming opportunities that AK Psi will provide your members and your chapter that will hopefully ease some of the burden that you all have to try to do some sort of programming locally. If you have things planned or you're able to execute some things, that's great. But if you don't, and you're worried about participation or just general Zoom fatigue and things like that, we can provide, again, like AK Psi can provide some of the core programming and some pretty exciting things that we're going to roll out this fall for your members. And again, we'll talk a little bit about that later on, or in a couple weeks, or maybe in a week when we're ready to kind of roll a lot of these pieces out. But tonight, relative to chapter operations, Thomas is going to cover what have been traditionally our chapter standards. And I think that the default sort of has been in the past that if you don't meet these standards, each chapters have some sort of corrective action, probationary period, and that sort of thing. For the sake of our trying to look ahead and look forward, please think about these minimum expectations as not items for you to be held accountable for necessarily, but just think of them as sort of a roadmap to get you started in developing your goals for your chapter. Again, just thinking that because this is such a strange scenario that we're in, and you really don't have much of a framework on how to set goals or figure out what you're going to do this year, these minimum expectations are merely an attempt to get you started on the things that you could potentially plan and do. You can add to them. You can do different things around them. You don't have to stick to all of them. But again, it just provides you with a framework. So Thomas, I know you're going to jump into that next. Before I go any further, I do want to acknowledge that we will have a slight dues decrease this year. It's just certainly every little bit helps, and everything that we can do kind of collectively to pull together, we're gonna try to work through the best we can. The board of directors met last weekend, and through Zoom just like this for about 8 or 10 hours. And we went through a lot of the details for how can we make it work this semester, and how can we basically get through this time when we really don't know exactly what's going to happen. but we can do the best we can to plan and to put in contingencies. The budget this year for the fraternity overall is going to be in deficit of about $700,000. But we still think just generally speaking, that being able to kind of provide the things that we're doing, we can weather that storm financially, because it really is an investment in the organization, in you as the leadership, in all the volunteers and staff to get through this time frame and to come out on the other side stronger than we were coming in. So in the short term, it's going to be a challenge. And again, we're going to lay all of these things out in a letter that is scheduled to go out Friday. It'll walk through the reduction in dues. Again, it's going to be a slight reduction, but at least it's something. It'll walk through basically a breakdown of all the costs that the organization has and how that breaks down. It'll also include some policy and procedure changes that we've made in the short term to try to relieve some of the burden of some of those things. It'll also include some preview of some of the programming that we're planning to help everyone get through the term. So it's a more comprehensive explanation that there's some details we need to work out before we can launch it off. So we're going to refine it next day or two and then get it out to you Friday. And then finally, Thomas, I just want to thank you and the management team for your leadership. It has been a kind of a whirlwind the last 4 or 5 months, and we've had a lot more communication, a lot of meetings that we normally have had. And I just appreciate you hanging in there and your team hanging in there because again, this is about us trying to get through this together. So thank you, Thomas. So I'll turn it over to you for your section here.
All right, good evening, brothers. It's good to see some familiar faces, both on the student side and on the volunteer side. So just quickly, just expectations for the meeting. As we're still going to the fall, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. We don't have all the answers for that, but the point of this officer town hall and the breakouts is to connect you all with your peers, connect you all with volunteers, kind of talk things through, share ideas, and see what tools and resources you could take from here and bring it back to your chapter as you try to sort what the fall semester will look like for you all. Like Steve mentioned, in regards to this year about your chapter minimum standards, we are changing those to accommodate COVID-19, right, and the unknowns that's out there. So this year we're looking at what we're calling minimum expectations. So as a fraternity, we're here to accommodate each chapter according to their upcoming year. There's going to be things that are going to change, just like at the end of last spring. But we're here to accommodate and help and support you in as much as we can. So rather than just why look at chapter expectations and not chapter minimum standards? So rather than approaching the chapter minimum standards as a list of requirements to be enforced, like you have to do or you get in trouble, the goal is to have to determine what your chapter needs to provide the continuity and engagement given these times of uncertainties. These new chapter minimum expectations are more to give you, like Steve said, a plan or framework of goals for you to achieve this year and to push you and your officer team and your chapter, especially in the COVID world where no one knows what's going to happen 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road, this semester, and so forth. The minimum expectations are at least, will give you that starting place. How did we come up with these? We worked with a student advisory group this past summer made up of members across 60 members across the fraternity to kind of develop these and talk through them and see what makes sense for you all at this time. So I want to note that we appreciate the student advisory group for their work and assistance on this. The details of those will go out in, like Steve said, in a day or two. So I'll try to share those out to you all. And then finally, as an officer leader of this organization, you're going to be tested in your role. And most likely, this is going to be one of the biggest challenges you're going to have in your college career. Just know that you're all are capable. Just give it a try. Either try virtual recruitment, try virtual pledging, try to run a virtual chapter. Regardless of the outcome, it is all part of your growth. And we don't know what spring's going to look like. And from a fraternity perspective, we're planning for a virtual spring. So give it a try this fall. If it works out, that's great. If it doesn't work out, at least you know what works and doesn't work, and you can take that into the spring when you actually have to hit the ground running from a virtual perspective. And then I just want to leave this with you all, a quote that came from the last officer town hall. You know, true leaders rise in the midst of chaos, and you are the guiding light of the chapter. You guys are the officer leaders of this organization. Everyone's going to look up to you. Everyone's going to ask questions. You're going to get stressed out. You have no idea what's going on. But they're going to look to you and know that you guys have the ability to do anything you want. And the resources that the management team and the staff has been putting together for the past 3-4 months will provide you that support. But it can only provide you support. It's really going to be up to you all to kind of take the next step and see how can you change the way your chapter is running today to fit the more virtual world, to fit the environment that you all are challenged with. So we will get through this together. I have no doubt in my mind. You guys I've seen a lot of great things from our student members. So appreciate you all for being here on tonight. Looking forward to the conversations that's going to be had, and just keep supporting each other and reaching out and sharing ideas. All right. With that being said, hand it over to you, Melinda.
Yeah, Melinda, before you go to breakout, I wanted to quickly mention something that I forgot. I know it wasn't necessarily on the agenda because actually it just went live today, but the My AKSci app is now available in the iPhone and Android Play Store. Actually, it looks like that little ghost guy right there. I don't know if you can see that. Like our little AKSci man there, or woman. I'm not sure. I think it's a non-binary there. Yep, on purpose. So again, this is a place where you can access everything from the groups to your knowledge base to individual groups for each chapter officer. There's also there, obviously, if you registered for this event, you went through My AKSci. Well, now you can do that all from your phone. So please check that out when you get a chance. A little bit of shout out to Brian Parker on the staff. He's basically stewarded this thing all the way through, and he's been at it for months. So this thing going live, I don't really know if he celebrated or just breathed a big sigh of relief. It was one of those things where it was more relief than victory. But either way, it's available to all of us now, so please check that out. Sorry, Melinda, I elbowed my way back in, but Coral reminded me that I forgot it. So thank you, Coral, for a quick reminder there.
Sorry. So now we're going to move to the breakout sessions. And you should have received a second Zoom link in your confirmation email for whichever officer role you signed up for. We also put the links in the chat function. And how this will go is there will be a volunteer giving a brief presentation, and a staff person is there as more of a tech person to run the chat function, or if there's questions. And those also will be recorded and sent out after tonight. And from the breakout rooms, the session will end. We won't be coming back to the main session. So once your group is done with the presentation discussion, then it's done for the night. So if you want to click on the link, the other Zoom link, and go to the room that for the officer role that you signed up for, now's the time to do that. So thank you, and move over to the other links.